Hey everybody, hope y'all doing well. Welcome back to another episode of Down with the King. It's your boy King Malachi, your CPA's favorite CPA, and I have a special guest with me today to talk real estate and accounting. It's actually my broker, someone who's made me a whole lot of money, Miss Brandi Wade. How's it going, Brandi? Introduce yourself.
Hi, thank you so much, Malachi, for having me today. It's going good. And yeah, so as Malachi said, my name is Brandi Wade. I'm a real estate broker. I'm the owner of DiverseCity Realty. We're based in Houston, Texas, but we service the entire state of Texas. And I'm thrilled to be here.
I'm glad to have you. I've known Brandy since our college days, very long time, and I believe I can say she's probably found us over half of our portfolio, if I'm not mistaken. So when I say she's made my family a lot of money and created a lot of wealth for us, that is true indeed. And give her a shout; she can do the same thing for y'all too. So, Brandy, I have you on for two reasons today that I'm really excited about. Number one, so people can get to know you better and know how you can help bring wealth to their lives by being a broker. But number two, in the accounting industry right now, we're in a little bit of trouble. We've been, losing a lot of people. We lost 300,000 people in the last 2 years, and less people are majoring in accounting because they have stereotypes that, we're boring and, our work isn't fun and things like that. And most people that they know you, but they actually don't know that you're an accountant and
Yep.
that's what your background is in. So that's why I
Yep.
want to focus and kind of highlight that and talk about accounting and how it led you to your career. So I guess if you just don't mind, kind of tell us what led to your interest and background in accounting in general.
Yeah, so when I went to college, like a lot of young people, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. So I chose to major in mass communications, which seemed really fun. Um, Very soon after I started that, I realized that the average salary for somebody in mass communications was not quite what I was looking for. So I decided to major in accounting. And I did that because I knew a lot of accountants personally who um, were, what seemed to me, they seemed to be thriving. So I was good at math, and I thought, oh, okay, if I'm good at math, I'll be good at accounting. Um, and later found out accounting is not as much math as you would think, but it's a lot more to it. But anyhow, I got an internship um, a couple summers in and interned at Anderson, which was a pretty big deal back then. Anderson was a highly respected accounting firm, which unfortunately isn't around today. Um, but one thing that's pretty cool is I got a sign on bonus when I started there and $5,000, and I bought my first car with that. So, yeah, that was pretty nifty. Um, and, for me, that was big bucks. And when I interned, it kind of opened my eyes to um, what a accounting professional really is, right? I mean, so I did audit. Usually, you can pick audit or tax as a path if you go with one of the big accounting firms, and so I chose to do audit. And it was really kind of crazy that 20-year-old me would walk into a room as an auditor and ask controllers and people much older with much more experience for different paperwork and different things, documents that I needed to complete the audit, and people were intimidated just because I was an auditor. So that kind of showed me how much respect um, that people have for people with accounting degrees, and what kind of a big deal being a professional auditor could be. So that was pretty cool.
Okay, so it's really interesting that you mentioned Anderson and what it was like to work there. I started out at Anderson too. I interned there my junior year in the Atlanta office, and then came to the Houston office after I graduated from UT. After I got my master's at UT, I went to work for the Houston office right when the Enron debacle happened, and we were there like 9 months before the office closed. And the thing I missed the most and loved the most about Anderson was their emphasis for teaching and education. But before you even started, they would send you to, Champaign, Illinois, I believe, for a whole week or two, just to get educated and get you caught up on the new methodologies and new principles. And they really gave you a lot of time there uh, during working hours to focus and sit and study for the CPA because they want to make sure everybody passes the CPA exam. So Anderson, a great place to work. I miss it. For the record, the Supreme Court found us, and I say us, not guilty. And they said that we didn't do anything wrong as far as Enron was concerned. So, just putting that out there in the universe. We were ultimately found to be, that we had no wrongdoing. So from accounting to being a real estate broker now, how did you make that transition? And I will also note that the day I knew that you were a great accountant is when you got a job offer to work at Heinz, because I knew how hard it was to get on there and how strenuous their interview process was. So yeah, what led you to make that change from going to accounting into real estate?
I was at Heinz, I was really falling in love with the real estate aspect of what I was doing. And kind of liking the audit a little bit less. So I was sure, even after working at the previous company that I worked at, I was pretty sure that real estate was my jam, that's the industry that I wanted to be in. So I went to business school and got a degree, a business degree, master's in business administration, focused in real estate, and learned a lot and graduated in 2011. And the commercial real estate market was a little bit different. It was struggling a bit, and the recruiting channels weren't the same kind of as other positions. So I had to do a lot of unique things. I started doing real estate consulting for some real estate companies. And I also got my real estate license in the meantime, and started reaching out to different friends and, um, just said, hey, I got my license. Let me know how I could help. And a lot of my clients are investors. And so there was friends and clients like you and others would say, hey, can you help me find an investment property? Or can you help me rent out my garage apartment? And so when I first started, I wasn't making a ton of money, but eventually it just kind of snowball effect picked up. Business became abundant. And so I just stuck with it. And after a while, I think probably second or third year working at another brokerage, I was a top producer, and I think paid $50,000 or $60,000 in splits. And I realized, you know what, I could do this myself and save a little bit of that money and possibly make a bit more. So that's how I started my own brokerage. And, my investor clients have been the ones who kind of keep me going ever since. And I have clients of all sorts, right? Some commercial clients, a lot of residential clients, but a whole lot of investor clients.
Pretty cool. So would you say you need a real estate license to get involved in real estate? We hear that a lot where people say, hey, I want to be involved. Let me go out and get my real estate license. Do you think that's something that's necessary to get a start in this field?
So it depends on how you want to be involved, right? So for me, I wanted to be a salesperson. So to be a salesperson, or to list homes and represent buyers and sellers, yes, you do have to have a license. But if you want to be a builder, or if you want to be a wholesaler or a real estate investor, then no, you don't have to have a real estate license. So it really depends what it is that you want to do, and how you want to be involved in real estate.
So, as a business owner, when would you say that you think a business owner needs to hire an accountant?
Um, I would say, honestly, when you start your business, right? Like, every business owner has to file some sort of tax return, either to the state of Texas or you know, national tax returns, and trying to do that yourself it's a lot of work, even if you have the skills. And if you don't have the skills, it can kind of get you in trouble trying to assume that you know what you're doing. So I think, along with like having a lawyer, hiring an accountant is one of the most important ways a small business can set themselves up for success.
Makes sense. So I guess what ways do you think? I mean, you have a very diverse career based on what you've been able to do with your accounting degree. Uh, what advice would you have for other accountants on how to get some more diversity in their careers and do some things that aren't, enter into some fields that aren't traditional accounting fields like you have?
That was one of the benefits of being in public accounting, is that you actually get exposure to a lot of different industries. You can work on um, oil and gas companies, real estate companies, not-for-profit companies, just because these are all the clients that public accounting firms typically have. Um, so I'd say for somebody who is an accountant and is looking to just kind of get a breadth of experience, try to, get a job at a public accounting firm, or just take advantage of all the opportunities that are out there. There are also a lot of accounting organizations that offer sort of an exposure to a lot of different industries and professionals. One that you and I both have been involved in is the National Association of Black Accountants, but there are a ton of others. And so I think those organizations are also a really good place to learn a lot.
Yeah, you're spot on with going into public accounting and how auditing can help you learn about what you may want to do later. I don't know if you know this. My first exposure to real estate was auditing a doctor who owned a lot of real estate for the purposes of reducing his taxable footprint. And I was like, hey, you got all this income coming in, and you're not paying tax on any of it. And that's when I first discovered about mighty depreciation and being a real estate professional and yada yada and all of that stuff. Was by doing an audit of someone in that same capacity. So yeah, audit skills they transfer over. And you mentioned earlier about just about what people think and assume accounting is. Like they think accounting, you mentioned, has a lot of math involved to it. And the math is pretty basic. It's actually, I'd say you actually it's more English and writing and technical writing involved in accounting than actual math skills, which in my regards is good for developing processes and steps that help me become a successful builder and things like that. So, the different skill sets, truly do transfer over. So you're clearly highlighting all the diverse skill sets that accountants have and
Mhm.
how an accounting degree can help in all types of industries. So why do you think this stereotype exists, about us being boring and, just sitting in the closet, crunching numbers and we have no life and all of that stuff? Why do you think that is the way it is?
Haters.
Okay.
No, I'm kidding. I think because sort of the same idea that I had when I was very young and in college, that it was all about math, right? And, a lot of people consider math a difficult subject. Um,
Right.
but as you just mentioned, accounting really is more about processes than math. And it's just not true. So I will say, to this day, um, most of my professional network and friends are people that I met when I was an accountant. And some of the coolest, craziest, most fun people and most fun experiences that I've had have been with my accounting friends.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like I said, when we were involved in the National Association of Black Accountants, we used to have galas and happy hours. And we used to hang out pretty tough. And I think accountants work hard and they play hard. So we really had a good time. And it's very nice to have been friends with people. I mean, and for 20 years, where we've gone from being, young people who would work really hard during the day, then go to happy hour, to now seeing the success that a lot of our friends that have been accountants have achieved either in the accounting field or in different endeavors, and still being able to celebrate and spend time with them and their families. So I don't know why that exists, that stereotype, but it's absolutely not true.
So what do you think there's some things that we can do industry-wide to combat that and let people know what we're really like?
Yeah, so I really think that if people saw how accountants are with each other, right? Like the camaraderie and the friendships and just how fun that is. And I think involvement with groups, like the professional networking organizations really does, that's where you find out how fun accountants are. So, maybe there needs to be a public campaign about, work hard, play hard, because I really do think that is the accountant's motto.
For sure. We definitely we definitely like to kick it. And we definitely know how to play hard. Even if we're just drinking on Sprites. So
Some of us drink
any
Sprite,
advice
some of
that you
us drink
have?
Chardonnay.
Yeah, yeah. So any advice for kids coming out of school now? Kids, wow. For kids coming out of school now with accounting degrees that want to enter into the field, what advice would you have for them?
So I would say public accounting, in my opinion, and it's also just based on my experience, that is one of the best places to start your career if possible. And so they're the big four accounting firms, but they're also smaller regional firms that do just as much work as the big four. And I think that would also give you a really, really good bit of experience. And, say you don't get a job at a big four accounting firm, I would say, find a place in an industry that looks good, try to find a place with good work-life balance, and definitely join a professional accounting organization to help you build your network. And I think that's probably true for any industry, but for me, it proved to make a big difference in the trajectory in my career. So make friends that are accountants, get a mentor, somebody who is an accountant, whether they be practicing accounting or, somebody who used to be an accountant, and just, have that person kind of help guide you and reassure you whenever work really gets hard. But I would say just really, dig into it and try to just build as strong a network as possible.
So would you recommend those in college start building those networks through organizations while they're in college?
Absolutely. So, I mean, the way I got all of the internships that I got was through the accounting club when I was in college, because the accounting club let everybody that was in accounting know, hey, this big four company is going to be coming to town to recruit. This organization is going to be giving out scholarships. So yes, absolutely. And if there's the opportunity, and this is an opportunity that wouldn't probably just fall in somebody's lap, you'd have to be proactive. But an internship while you are in college, whether it be for a local CPA that's in the city where your school is, or a summer internship just doing bookkeeping, I think an internship and what that puts on your resume offers a world of difference, and it kind of sets you apart from people who are graduating with a degree and no experience.
Makes
Even if
sense.
it's an unpaid internship, I think in the long run it would be worth it. But most internships will pay a little something.
And some will give you $5,000
Some
upfront.
will. Yep.
Apparently. All right, so let's shift a little bit from accounting more to the real estate side. So you're a dynamic broker. Recently, there's a lawsuit, that recently settled for realtors saying we don't have to pay 6% anymore or something like that. Can you just kind of delve into what the lawsuit was about and how you think it'll impact your industry and real estate in general?
For sure. So this is such a new settlement, even for realtors. We're kind of curious to see how this is going to affect the industry in the long term. Just to kind of summarize, the lawsuit was against the National Association of Realtors and a number of real estate brokerages that have a national presence, as well as some of the MLSs, which for those of us in Houston, it's HAR. In Austin, it's the Association, the Austin Board of Realtors. So, these MLSs where most people go to find their properties, they were also sued. The lawsuit claimed that the National Association of Realtors was not giving people the option to negotiate real estate commissions, that real estate commissions were essentially set. That actually is untrue. Because realtors will tell you, the understanding is that it was kind of like a set 6%. And so I'd say that was the standard, but it was negotiable. So every realtor has worked in multiple transactions where the 6 that is typically divided 3% and 3%, where they didn't make 3%. So sometimes they made 1.5%, sometimes they made 2%, sometimes they made 4%. But there were a number of people, I don't remember what city and state it was in, but somewhere on the West Coast, their realtors kind of made them believe that 6% was the standard. They believed it wasn't negotiable and they didn't want to pay it. They also didn't want to or didn't realize that they were paying as sellers the buyer's real estate agent's commission. And so now what the settlement has said is that on an MLS, which is typically where an agent would go to see all the details of a house, including what the commission was, they're not going to be able to, MLSs won't be able to display how much a buyer's agent will be compensated, which means that perhaps sellers don't have to compensate buyer's agents. Perhaps buyer's agents are going to be paid by the buyer. It also requires that buyer's agents have a representation agreement where the buyer says, yes, you are representing me. And what's included in that is that if the seller doesn't pay a buyer's agent, that the buyer will pay them X amount. So the idea is that the price of houses will go down a bit, and perhaps real estate commissions might go down a bit. I think the part that it doesn't speak to, which is really important right now, is that buyer's agents might be paid directly by buyers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in this era where we're talking about housing affordability, where buyers are having a hard time affording a house, period. And because of interest rates and increased home prices, it just makes it tough for buyers to get into a first home. And if you add a real estate commission on top of that of 3% or 2.5% or whatever the case may be, it's going to make it even more expensive for buyers to purchase a house. One of the things that's very common, if a buyer is buying a house and the real estate agent is getting 3% and they're having a difficult time affording closing costs, real estate agents very commonly will give a buyer $1,000 towards their closing costs or some percentage towards their closing costs. And so that opportunity is now going to be missed if a seller's agent doesn't agree to pay the buyer's agent. So I just think that that piece of the puzzle is missed and is not being discussed. But I do think that buyers are going to have a harder time now having to afford their agents' commissions. And it also could lead to some buyers not having an agent, which, in reality does not benefit a buyer. They're not going to have anybody to negotiate on their behalf. I just think that there are a lot of things that are kind of left out of the conversation right now.
Makes sense. That's real valuable insight. We appreciate that. So,
Yeah.
what are you noticing in the market now as far as buying, selling homes with interest rates being where they are?
Yeah. So one of the things that I mentioned is that a lot of my clients are investors. So I have one investor that I'm working with right now, and he says, okay, I have 20 to 25% down payment ready to go for up to $1 million of investment properties. If you can find them for me, and then just let me know if the numbers work. And he plans to get a mortgage. And even with 25% down at a rate of 7.125, it is very, very difficult for us to find properties that work. Because, once you add in taxes and interest, people say rental rates are high, but they're not as high as mortgage rates. And so that's why it's making a lot of sense for a lot of people to rent instead of buy, but it's also making it hard for investors who don't want to just pay cash for a property to get a return or even to break even. And so that's one of the things that and this is the second time this has happened within, this year. So I have people who have cash ready to go, but the interest rates are prohibiting them from making money on investments. Buyers who have been looking or, who have been in the market for a while and kind of either just got their credit right or just saved up enough to put down a down payment or, are building and just in the neighborhood that they're looking just opened up for development, they're still going to buy, right? And so they're going to buy at a higher interest rate, perhaps pay a little bit more for a year or two until interest rates go down. And then when they're able to refinance, they'll refinance and get a better rate. So some mortgage companies are getting creative and offering rate buy downs, which increases your closing costs up front, but makes the mortgage a little bit more easy to digest each month. So mortgage companies are getting creative. Builders are offering a lot of incentives just to make it easier for buyers to get in and kind of deal with this high interest rate and high housing prices.
But have you seen a decrease in prices overall, or is the market, especially here locally, going up or staying the same?
So during COVID, there was like this just insane increase in prices. So I think prices increased 30% for 3 years straight. So in some areas, 100% increase in housing prices, right? Something that used to cost 200 jumped to 400. And I'm not seeing on a large scale that 400 price point go to 3. Maybe it'll go to 379. Some houses are sitting on the market a little bit longer than they would have, say, 2 or 3 years ago. But it's still a seller's market, right? And so the definition of a seller's market versus buyer's market, 6 months on the market or less is a seller's market, 6 months or more is a buyer's market. We haven't seen a buyer's market in Houston since I've known you. And we've known each other a really, really long time. So prices might be inching down very slightly, but not significantly, not enough to combat the interest rate. And so, people who are waiting for prices to go down, I wouldn't recommend doing that because you might end up buying, either with the same price or a higher price in a couple of years. And the one thing that I think is that there's going to be so much pent up demand when interest rates do go down to below 6%. I think it's going to be a buying frenzy again. And so you don't want to be in one of those multiple offer situations where you end up paying more than the asking price. And that's what drove prices up. And that's a frustrating market really for everybody.
That makes sense. So how much you say you have a lot of investor clients, how much build to rent activity are you seeing, or just where you have, a lot of people and companies trying to be landlords and keep people out of their own homes?
So I think the build to rent really is where it's at, right? And kind of your way of approaching that is one of the only ways it really works now, because you have a little bit more control over your costs, right? And you could back into what sort of upgrades you're going to put in the property. How big or, small it's going to be based on what from the information I'll give you, like what sort of rents can I collect in this area? Whereas the market in general is setting a price for a unit, a sales price, and that does not, like I mentioned, work for what rental rates are in general. So build to rent is a really smart thing to do. A lot of people are still afraid to be their own builder, but really it's where the best way to get equity and to make the numbers work for you. Because 3 years ago, people got such low interest rates and prices were lower, people, I think, are more inclined, if they want to buy a second property, to keep that first property, to rent it out, and to get, it's very easy to make money on something that you own with a 3% interest rate, but not at a 7.5%.
Very much so. That double the price, double the cost makes a significant difference.
Yes. Yep.
Well, Brandi, we appreciate you stopping by. Any last words of valuable information or insight that you want to leave about accounting or real estate?
Yeah. So what I would say for sure is accounting is a very solid career, period. Like, so if you want to get a degree in something that you know that you will be employable throughout any sort of economic situation, I think accounting is it. I think accounting as a beginning career is incredible because it teaches you discipline, process. It gives you exposure to a lot of important just business fundamentals. And I think it kind of gives you the opportunity to branch out into a ton of different other things that you might want to do later. So I'm a strong proponent of a degree in accounting. I would not change it for the world. And real estate, I think, is an incredible career. I've enjoyed it a lot. But I think to be successful in real estate probably requires a little bit more than people think. It's kind of the opposite of accounting. People think real estate is very sexy and people think accounting is not. But I think especially if you are an independent agent or broker, you have to work twice as hard as the average person to withstand industry situations like the one that we're in right now, right? And be able to withstand these times so that you're here for your clients next year when the market gets better. And that's harder to do than when you have kind of a regular job like accounting. But it's all fun, whatever it is that you decide to do, you just got to put your heart and soul into it and persevere.
Makes sense. So if the people want to find a great broker that has a background in accounting who also happens to be bilingual to help them find a lot of their real estate portfolio and increase their wealth, where could they find her at?
Sure. So you can go on our website. It's DiverseCity, www.diversecity.us. And that is DiverseCity.us. And my number is 832-978-1408. And I'd be thrilled to help anybody that could use the help.
Well, you've definitely been a help to me and my family. And I think you've helped the people that will be watching this episode to help them know how they can transition from accounting into the world of real estate, or how an accounting degree can help them diversify into another type of career path. We want to thank everybody else for tuning in. Catch us later on for another episode of Down with the Cane. We'll see you when we see you.